Hello and welcome to Mini Builds, a channel about building software and electronics projects. In the last episode of the Habit Board devlog, we introduced the Add Board page. So now we have a way of naming a board when we create it. And we also use that same page to edit a board. So in this video, we're going to introduce the ability to persist state, because at the moment, whenever we do a restart like this, all of our boards, apart from the original one, disappear. So we go back to the initial state of just having the board from the block. To do that, in Dart, we use this JSON serializable package, which essentially generates code for us to do the conversion from our normal object to a JSON string and back the other way. So as we can see with this example that we have here, they've attached this serializable annotation to person, and that essentially causes the package to build these functions that take in a map and pull out the relevant parts and construct a person object for you. And you can see this is doing the other way around of converting our person instance to essentially just a map with different fields in it. So let's get started by adding the package to our pub spec. There's also another package we need, which is this build runner package, and this is a special dependency because it's a dev dependency. Essentially, it's only required to build those conversion functions that we saw in our person example. It's just to build these two methods. So if we pop that in down here, the usual pub get, and we'll essentially copy the imports from the example and try to get it so we serialize our simplest object, which is this entry object. Cool. By specifying this part, it will mean that this Dart file, in this case is just example.dart, will be able to access the functions inside this generated file. So we'll do a similar thing, but it'll be model.g for generated.dart. And now we'll add the annotation to our entry, the JSON serializable annotation to our entry class. So we're getting red underlines here because we haven't generated the package yet. And to do that, we have to run this command, flutter pub run build runner build. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it does make sense if you read it. And all that's going to do is essentially find this serializable annotation or the class that's been annotated with it and build some methods for mapping the object to a map and the other way around. Cool. So with that done, hopefully we have a model.g file. There we go. So as we can see, it's created these methods that just take a map of string dynamic and pull out the date field and create an entry, and likewise just one that pulls out the date and puts it into a map. And now that we have those methods, we can essentially just copy this and replace as appropriate. So now our entry class has this factory method that constructs, that creates our entries from a JSON map, and we have the opposite way around of converting an instance of an entry to a map of string dynamic. So we can check that out by adding a button to here that just serializes an entry. So we will copy this here. json, why not? And then we will print JSON encoded entry with just time.now. And then with any luck, if we press this button, looking at the debug, we will see a JSON serialized version of the entry, which looks pretty good. So we'll crack on and do that with our other objects, and then we'll do it with the state as well. So now our board has been annotated, so with any luck we can just rerun the build runner build, and this will create some more some more functions in our generated model file. Cool. So that has added this board from JSON and board to JSON. And once again, we'll go back to here and copy these methods, replacing entry with board. And there we go. And we will do this with our state object as well. Once again, run the build runner build and create the to JSON and from JSON methods. Cool. There we go. So now we have everything set up to essentially write this habitboard state object to a file and later read it back. So when an application starts up, we'll just read it from some file if it's available, and that will populate the list and all of the entries. And whenever we close the application, we'll write the state to the file, to the same file. So first thing we need to do is determine where we're going to write the file to. And to do that, we'll use this path provider file, which essentially provides a load of methods for common directories. So we'll start by adding this to our pubspec file. So with the path provider package installed, let's check out the example and get that working. So we'll write our data to this application documents directory, and we will be doing these operations in the qubit. So we'll have a load method and a save method, and this will read and write from the state. So these methods are asynchronous methods, which mean they return futures, and we have to essentially use this await keyword to pause execution until the future is completed, and then we can move on with the code and actually use the data contained within the future. So you can see that this returns a future containing a directory. Once the future is completed, we can just use the directory as normal, for example, getting the path out. We'll create a file called output file that will be in that app.doc path folder. And we'll use habitboard.json or habitboardstate.json as the file name. So we'll check that that exists. And again, this is an asynchronous function, so we will have to use await. Let's change that to exists. And also that's actually input. Or we just call it state file. So if the state file does exist, then we can read it to our state, or read it and deserialize it, and then emit that as our state. This is the state as a string. And our actual state will just be this state string but deserialized. And we simply use the habitboard state from string. And now we can emit that state. And that needs to be awaited, of course. There we go. So we will call this load method right at the beginning of our application in the run method, run app method. So at the moment, of course, we won't have anything in that file. So we'll implement the write as well, and we just use this test JSON button again to do that. So let's go to our states and write a save. Then we call it save state, and I'll rename this one to load state. So this will be very similar. Except for the fun bit where we're going to serialize our state that we already have into a string. So this is going to be JSON encodes our current state to JSON, and hopefully that is a string, that returns a string. Good. And now we can simply write as string our state string. And there's no need to omit anything. And then we'll go back to our main method, and instead of just printing something out, we'll get the qubit and then call the save state method. So let's just add a little bit of data to this so that we actually have something to prove that it's working as expected. Perfect. So half expecting this to fall over, but we'll see what happens. Cool. Seems that hot restart almost always does the trick. So let's save that again. And now if we do a hot restart, hopefully the data will still, this board will still exist with the entries. Hopefully. Cool. That looks good. Just to make extra sure, we'll add, yeah, just have it 1, whatever. Save that. State was saved. And then we'll do a hot restart again. And everything still exists. There we go. We may as well move this from the test JSON button to somewhere else, something that's tied to the application lifecycle. So ideally, whenever the application goes out of focus, such as the user goes to home, it'll then save the state for us. To achieve that, we can use this widgets binding observer class that provides us with a callback when the app lifecycle state changes. So we can detect when the application resumes or pauses, anything like that. So it looks like, unfortunately, we're going to have to make our sort of main widget a stateful widget, but I guess that's not too big of a deal. And we just need to throw in this mix-in widgets binding observer. So let's go back to the code, and we will make this a stateful widget and pop that in there, and essentially copy all of these. So it looks like in the init state it adds the observer, and then in the dispose it removes the observer. So I think we need all of that. And we can scrap that. And in here we'll just print state changed, and hopefully we can just print the actual state, and it will hopefully print something nice. Cool. So I think we have to, because we're changing the state, we'll do a hot restart. Cool. And with any luck, if I pause this or go to home, I'll see state changed, inactive, paused. Perfect. So we can just check whether the state is paused. And if it is paused, then we can just get the habitable qubit and call save state. And we can also, while we're here, we'll remove this test JSON button. Cool. So we'll bring the application back up and we'll do a quick hot restart. Cool. So let's go in here and just click away, click a few buttons. And then if we pause, we should return and this green tick will still be green with any luck. So we've gone to inactive, it says the state's been saved. Pop back to here and it looks exactly as we left it, which is great. So just do a little bit of tidying up here just to get rid of some bits and bobs. There we go. Cool. So that's all looking very good. So I think we can finish the video there. So we managed to serialize our objects and our state and also persist our state to a file and reload when the app starts up and save when it closes. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Bye.